Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Another workout for you here. This was deadlifts and squats, and this was hard. I sound like a broken record. They're all hard. This deadlift cycle, which comes from Matt Kroc, K-R-O-C. I've talked about it before, but yeah, pretty much every workout on this cycle has been the hardest deadlift session I've ever done, and this was no exception. Although this went relatively well today. I actually did a little bit more in the way of warming up. I took 3 sets of 5 with 135 and then kind of worked my way up from there. And I've been kind of pondering this workout since my last deadlift workout, I think. Just wondering if I'd get through it. So the top weight today was 425 for 4 sets of 3. And to give you a sense of how much of a challenge that is for me, this was the first time I had ever tripled 425. So that the first set was a PR. So, you know, definitely tough stuff. But felt relatively good. Felt good enough to squat semi-heavy afterwards. As always, this is the first time I'm watching this myself. I did notice from watching one of these heavy pulls on the camera earlier that I do have this bad habit of not really locking out that first rep. But again, it's not a big concern because it's never been an issue in a contest for me, so I'm not really too concerned about it. My training partner Chris had a very good set of deadlifts today as well. I think he did 495 for 5, and that I think is tagged to my Facebook page as well. That's worth watching. His pulls are coming along really well. So I've been really trying to perfect the touch and go method that you see me using here. Had I not, this is the only way I can get through these heavy sets, to be honest. And there are pros and cons. I've probably talked about this before, but there are pros and cons to resetting each rep so that each rep is essentially like the first rep, or touch and go, which you'll see me do this here. I think I did 2 reps here, but you'll see that touch and go. And you know, the positive of touch and go is that you have longer time under tension. So in other words, the involved muscles are continuously under tension, as opposed to when you reset each rep. Typically what you'll end up doing is almost dropping each rep from the top, so you have very minimal eccentric load. And there's a positive to that too, because you can recover faster from that, but you don't get quite the same training effect. And of course the other downside to touch and go is that you know, for powerlifting, if you're competing in powerlifting, you want each rep to be like your first rep, because in powerlifting you only do 1 rep anyway. So here's 385, which was my last warm-up. And I think I remember this feeling pretty good. My body weight was 200 on the dot today. That was pretty good. Not easy, by the way. I was making a comment to a client of mine the other day that, you know, even though I pulled over 5, I pulled 510, 400 is still heavy for me. I'm not kidding you. A 400 single is a lot of work for me, even though it's less than 80% of max. So here we go. This is the first time I've ever, this is the biggest triple I've ever done, this first set of 3 with 425. And I'm totally kind of dreading this first set. But it was okay. That first rep was halfway decent. No lockout. And that's the touch and go I was talking about earlier. Yeah, that was a hard set. I actually almost passed out on that set. Oh, okay. I guess we don't have too much time before the second. These deadlifts from start to finish probably took me almost an hour, probably about 50 minutes. So here's set number 2. Yep. No, gotta lock those out. Gotta lock those out better. It's all right though. All right, I guess I'll take it. The guys were just saying there that that looked better than the first set, and I think it did. There's kind of an advantage on the second set, which is psychologically you know what you're in for. So it's not an unknown. So at least you kind of know what you're dealing with. There's no surprises. So that's the advantage that you can potentially pick up on a second set or a third set. So these are pretty daunting. What I always try to do, mentally, what I try to do when I'm approaching a daunting weight is I just think to myself, well, this is just going to be another heavy pull. There's just no mystery about it. It's just a heavy pull, and that's it. And it helps to kind of dissociate yourself from the outcome. So I think the more that you can focus on the process, I think the better off you are. You know, focusing too much on the outcome can really kind of throw the process. So I'm a big fan of being very process-oriented, just doing the right things. I like how that looks. Boy, I'll tell you though, these were absolute maximum efforts. And I think what I remember telling the guys on this set is that the danger of the last set is there's a danger of you're kind of relaxed because you don't have as much ahead of you now. You only have one set, so it's easy to kind of let your guard down and get mentally kind of relaxed, and you can't be because, I mean, obviously the fourth set is going to be harder than the sets before it. So this, in a certain respect, is the hardest set, and it was hard. I knew I had it, but it was hard. And that was a relief. That was a relief to finish that one. But I got to say, I did not feel terribly busted up, and I went up to 275 on back squats, high bar back squats. So compared to the previous week, I didn't feel really as trashed, and I felt healthy. Don't feel terribly beat up. So yeah, I went up to 275 for a triple on high bar squat. And I actually felt pretty healthy. Be interested to watch these with you. Yeah, not too bad. Yep, depth is good. Yeah, I like those pretty much. There's Chris's butt. Chris and Ryan were doing front squats as I was doing back squats. Yeah, these felt pretty decent. There's an interesting phenomenon when I squat. Brett Contreras pointed this out to me on a set of front squats last week, but you might have to watch this more on the next set because I'm almost finished there. But typically you would expect the shin to move more and more forward the deeper you go. But if you watch me squat, the shin will start to go forward, and then at the very bottom it comes back again. We'll see if it happens on this set. It's just something I've been watching lately. It's like the story of my life. All of my idiosyncrasies are completely strange. They make no sense. Okay, so here it comes, and watch. See it come back? So you would think the deeper you go, the more flexion you would have, but the knee is going forward, forward, and then it sits back just a little bit. And it's more pronounced when I do front squats. My knowledge of mechanics is not sufficient to really explain that, but It's just how it works for me. Chris ended up front squatting 275 for 10, and I forgot what Ryan did. If he's watching this, maybe he can make a comment to the video and remind me what he did. But these guys are doing 10s on front squats, which is very, very tough. I'm kind of watching my shin angle there. Yep, see how it comes back a little bit at the bottom? Forward and then back. Strain. By the way, some of you may not know, I've had some very serious surgery on my right knee. And, you know, I'm not symptomatic. I haven't been symptomatic in a lot of years, but my range of motion is restricted. My flexion is restricted. So when you see me at the bottom of that squat, that's as much as that right knee can flex. So I don't know if that has something to do with the weird shin thing that's going on. So I ended up, I got 225 for 5, and then I did 275 for 3, and that's the heaviest I've high bar squatted in a while, so I just kind of ran with that. Yeah, the shin goes back. Watch, the knee will go forward, and then it comes back a little bit. Interesting. But I like the squats. They look pretty good, felt pretty good. Also, if you're watching this and you haven't watched my presentation on escalating density training, I have a nice kind of like almost 40-minute PowerPoint presentation earlier today, so watch that and tell me what you think. I'm kind of curious to see how this is going to look. Yeah, not too bad. So, hope these are interesting for you, as always. And I'm not sure when I'll have the next video for you guys, but I'm trying to pump out as many of them as I can. And have a good night. I will see you next time.